We live in a time of spiritual warfare. We live in the end of a time. So, in times like this, people are forced to make a choice. My name is Asha Sekhmet, and I am a Tantra practitioner, an oracle, and spiritual guide. I have my purpose in building a sovereign community of like-minded souls based on an indigenous life system and following natural law. We practice polygamy and tribalism and sovereignty. So I just want to talk about the seriousness of polygamy, right? Because we see a wave of polygamy being broadcast in which it looks more juvenile, right? But we have to understand, right, as a woman who does this work, who consult with couples who are transitioning to polygamy, and I particularly really work with African American community and Black people across the globe who are getting their polygamous family structure, right? So I have seen in cases in which if you do not take it serious, right, then it will fail. If you have any other motive that is ego driven outside of building a sovereign community, it will fail. If you are doing it for money, materialism, it will fail because polygamy is spiritual. So the problem that we have today is if you are trying to practice polygamy, living a lifestyle, and especially for African Americans or what you may consider Black people, then you're trying to do that, but still living a white culture and white ideology and not doing that inner work to get back to your DNA and the culture that is natural to you. If you try to continue to be in your spirit a white person and try to practice polygamy in modern times, it will fail. So I just want to talk about personal stories, also talk about what we stand for with the Maji Sister Wife Tribe. We are not a group of women in which you can just come and get a fake dose like you itch for femininity and you're not doing your inner work as a Black woman, and you come in and you think you can just get that dose because you have the itch of femininity, and then you just leave, right? We are heterosexual women. We are sister wives. So that's it. That's what we do. So by default, coming into our groups and learning the life system, you would be practicing polygamy. You would be transitioning to practice this. So that's what it is. And the reality is where we stand. We take the predisposition, I take the predisposition that if you are a Black or African American woman and you are not pro-polygamy, that means you are not for a Black family and you are on the other side of the warfare, meaning offense, defense. We're not on the same side, right? You are considered an enemy. This is spiritual warfare. So I also want to say this. Let's rephrase it. I take the predisposition, and the Maji Sister Wife Tribe take this predisposition that if you are a Black African American woman and you are pro-family, pro-Black family, pro-Black love, that means you are pro-polygamy. If you are not pro-polygamy, that means that you are following a culture that is a white culture, and that is not the same thing. You do not have self-love. You actually lack self-love and self-knowledge. You cannot love yourself if you have no knowledge of self. That makes no sense. It goes against the laws of nature. Okay, so now that we have got that out the way, now let's talk about seriousness of polygamy. Okay, so let's talk about story time, right? So I've had, a sister come on my first class that we had, and she said that she was being introduced to the concept of polygamy. She said that she had a tremendous amount of fear, and she said that she released it and learned to follow spirit, right? So you're releasing that white woman in you, if you're a black woman, and then you're reclaiming back who you are in your indigenous bloodline. So, and for most of us, that would be African. And this is not for black people who doesn't consider themselves African or indigenous. If you are divisive about that and you're like, we don't come from Africa, this is not for you. I don't know what you are. I don't know where you belong. Okay, this is not for you, right? You are just as stupid and a slave than what you think you are. You are on somebody else's agenda. That is an entity inside of you that is very unintelligent, right? Divide and conquer. You are a slave. You're doing exactly what that slave master want you to do, which is to be divisive. So you are stupid. This is not for you. She released fear, and then that's when she came across my content and she watched every single one of my videos, follow spirit, meaning that she's releasing the white woman in her, that polluted culture that is being, right, that she was indoctrinated with as being born in America. Release that. Now she's like, my sister wife is moving in. She has children. I have children. This is very serious. This is what she told me out her mouth. This is not fun and games. This is not play. Because what will happen is, when you move in and you get to those levels, and we're talking about really practicing polygamy, the structured way, and polygamy is spiritual, what it's going to do is force you to see yourself. And no one can do the inner work for you. So you're going to be forced to see yourself. And if you fold, then you fold. You may not be strong enough. It takes some strong spiritual souls to do this. You just may not be strong enough. It may not be your lifetime, and that's what it is, right? But of course, on the other side, it gets very tumultuous, right? It's living a life that is of you practicing a culture and ideology of white people by default, of you being born in this country in U.S. for white people who would consider themselves as that. So by default, you having that, you are going to live a very painful, suffering life, right? Chasing materialism, the same way that you take your seriousness clocking in for the white man, and that level of seriousness that you have, that same seriousness, if not more, needs to be applied to family. So when we're talking about polygamy, that means you building a relationship with your sister wife and taking it that serious. In my experience, it's a bad sign when I hear a sister say the other woman. That's your sister. That's your husband's other wife. That's your family, the other woman, right? So we are in school, right? We're learning. So you have to work for that relationship just as much as you was clocking in for that white man and doing that work or getting that degree. The same, even more serious, getting that degree, right? It's not an impressive society. It is all the things that happen in this world. This is such a laughable, empire. It's not even an empire. This is such a laughable construct of a society. It's literally so, that's how you know it's ran off of incompetence. It is such a, that's what I'm saying. So going back to levels of seriousness, we're talking about building a sovereign community, building a nation, right? Long-standing nations that are bringing heaven to earth as humans living as God. Yeah, y'all not ready for that. I'm trying. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so I have sisters who'll say that. And then also the questions would be, well, what if you do this? If, what if you try, to talk to your sister wife and she's shutting you out and all this and that? It's the same seriousness that you would take if you had a professor and you were in college. Do you just not communicate with your professor because they are a butthole? No, like you came there to get your education. You're going to get your A and you're going to keep it moving. You should take family the same level of seriousness, if not more. Why? Because you are tested by spirit, by default of you don't just live and exist. You don't just live and exist as a human. Like you come here to learn. You learn lessons, and then that's what happened, right? Life is about choices. So with that, you can get consequences in those lessons, or you can get rewards, right? And then let's get back on to, okay, let's talk about religion, right? I'm not talking about a Black American person or Black people who practice any formalized religion. Why? Because by default of you practicing that, you practice either Arabic culture or a European culture. By default, you do not practice indigenous culture, because indigenous culture was based on spiritual life systems, not religion. So I'm not talking to you, right? This is not for you, right? So, right, go back and just, whether you're trying to avoid knowledge of self or you're just not ready, okay, the consequences with that as well spiritually, because again, you're trying to avoid and run from yourself, right? It's an easy scapegoat, right? So, getting back knowledge of self, right? Having fear of your own culture, right? Fear of your own spiritual systems, just a lot of fear, right? And the main thing is like I don't fear, right? There was a point in time when I did, but my heart had always longed for, well, I'll start here. Mainly what I did was I tried to continue my path to become closer and one with the Creator. And that's what allowed me to release the fear, because that is really tapping into your own strength, right? The God within. So that's what I did. And then through that, it comes, your strength and love of community. So really, there's no way you're about self-love if you're not willing to die for your community. And we live in spiritual war times, so spiritual warfare. So that means that you're not afraid to say the things you need to say for your community and for your community to get together. Like if you have shackles on, you're afraid to organize and do the real work, right? Like the bravery of sharing your mate, right? Then yeah, like you're a slave, right? Like you're a slave. So, and that's how it is if you choose to, practice for those who are in organized religions, whether you practice an Arabic religion or a European religion, right? You're still a slave. Okay. Well, this is for people who want to be free, right? It's a spiritual life path for those who want to really embody freedom, sovereignty, and community, right? We're talking about transcending our humanity, right? What is more beautiful than to get to the kingdom of heaven, right? That's the level of seriousness that we're talking about. So polygamy is our culture as indigenous women, and indigenous men, right? So now the other thing I would want to say is for brothers is, the level of work and the leadership that you would take to find the leadership that you would take to have that right woman who she may not be fully aware of knowledge of self, but you see that she really tries and using her femininity to really be with you, then a woman like that will be willing to learn and get back to her, and a Black woman I'm talking about, be able to get back to her indigenous self, because it would be for her love and longing to get closer to you. So who cares, you know, if you may think that she's a whore, or maybe you think that she's not that intelligent, or maybe you think that she's you know, hard-headed or negative, or but if you can see that she genuinely tries to go out of her way to really like impress you or connect with you in whatever ways, then I believe that that is a sign that that's her using her femininity, because she's trying to connect with you. She's trying to get to know you better, deeper. And you'll know she'll put that effort in, and you'll see, you know, and it's spiritual. So you'll see intuitively that she's really trying. I would choose that over a woman who appears to be smart because she has like a European's degree and she can do a job, right? Somebody telling her what to do, or be self-employed. Like, she's not intelligent. She's following a model exactly as meant for her, divide and conquer, and she's a slave. She's not intelligent. That is probably the stupidest woman, actually. And I can talk about that even from my personal experience. Like, my mother didn't finish high school, but my mother is the smartest woman that I know. My mother is the most intelligent woman that I know. Why? Because my mother chose, as a Black woman, she displayed for me how to choose family over higher education. That is the most intelligent. That makes a Black woman superior in intelligence. My mom learned so many lessons, and she evolved, and she did not control my father in a sense of allowing him to evolve over time as well, right? So going through the real hardships of marriage, my mom displayed that for me, right? Times when they were not at their best, right? My father did cheat on my mom, right? But my mother had showed through that marriage, like the working of her family. And me and my mom, we had a heart to heart. And my mom did tell me, she said, I would have left your father, but she said that he is a great father, and I wanted to keep my family intact. And over time, my father changed. My father is a different man. And he said that my mom challenges him to make him a better man. So, you know, it goes back to things like that. Like, I'll talk about even my personal experience when I was a young girl. It was a time when my father wasn't cheating on my mom with his other baby mother, and it was being talked about in my auntie's home, in which that woman was going to my family church. This is my mother's side of the family, so very connected, right? And my auntie was talking about this when I was there, and I had communicated with my mom because I overheard it all. I was like 13 years old. I told my mom, I said, my dad was like my superhero. He was, and that just shattered it. Like, because I just knew that was wrong. And then my mom said that she communicated that with my father, and my mom said it looked like, she said he started crying, and she doesn't ever see my dad cry. And she said it looked like someone took a knife and stabbed it in his heart. Lessons learned, right? When you have dysfunctional polygamy, right? And they get trickled down to the children, right? So that's why we're talking about having a formalized polygamy, right? Because my father shouldn't be demonized for that, because it's in his DNA, and he was a great provider, and he was a great disciplinary for all his children, all 10 of his kids. And that's very difficult for a man to do today. But my daddy made it happen because he is a structured man, and polygamy is in his DNA. But they were not practicing formalized polygamy, right? They were not practicing a spiritual life system, right? And they were American, right? So they're practicing a white culture. So based on that, you need to follow whatever the laws are set for that. And when I say biblical teachings, right? Biblical teachings and the structure that is there for that. If you have a U.S. marriage certificate, then you have to honor that, right? If you took that vow, that's not our culture. But if that's what you have for yourself, then that means that you should be held accountable to whatever those guides are. So, so back to what I was communicating about polygamy being serious, right? So another thing is, if you're coming in to the Maji Sister Wife Tribes classes and you're getting one-on-one coaching with me, at some point there's going to be a date in which, if you're done with initiations and you're just sitting in on the classes, you have all the opportunity to go out and find a good sister to pull up resources together so that you all can have your own businesses and really come together. And you're not doing that. You're not taking initiative with that. You're just coming to the sessions to get your fake femininity dose. Then at that point, I'm not going to continue to coach you. I'm not going to continue to work with you. You are not a part of the tribe, because by default, you're not practicing our life system, because you have to practice polygamy. You have to. You're not going to come here, learn everything about being a feminine woman and things like that, and then go and possess your husband and not do community building. That's just going to come back to you. Like, that karma is real, because you cannot just be an isolated individual out here, an independent woman, self-made. That's not self-love. That's self-hatred. Self-love is loving your community. Self-love is being willing to die for your community. Self-love is putting the community and the collective needs over your own feelings and desires, right? That's like a child. So when you live a life like that, as a Black woman, then that is your path. You've chosen your side of the war, right? And it is ugly over there, okay? It gets worse, okay? The times that we are heading in, it is not time to play games, right? We cannot live in la la land, right? So the times are here. It's about to get real serious. And I've been giving these warning signs, right? But maybe it's a part of human nature. Until it goes all bad is when you're ready to wake up. And maybe that needs to happen for a majority. But the ones who can see it now, hey, like, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. We'll live a good life. And, so that's the main thing I just wanted to talk about making sure that you take the seriousness. If you find that you want to be a part of the Maji Sister Wife tribe, and you are a Black woman who really want to reclaim your indigenous self, your love of community, you're seeking something beyond the mundane, that ordinary life, that fake illusionary life, right? You're seeking something deeper, then we are here, right? The things that you need to work on is knowing that through these initiations, your expectation is that you are going to be training your sister wives, right, to come into your family like I do. I have been doing that, and I am doing that, right? And it's great when I have sisters who really want to learn. I have a sister wife in my sister wife tribe who wants to be a sister wife. And she's learning. She's doing the best that she can with what she has to work with. And we're working with her, right? The main thing is about helping her, right? So developing that relationship, right? And then helping your husband, right? So you're using the tools and all this to enhance your husband so that, so that as a Black American man, he's then become his own boss, right? That's the goal. We don't want him working for the white man, right? We want him to be his own boss, right? Taking care of, the family and being that leader, because collectively what is going to happen is that group would then separate themselves from the peasant class of Black African Americans to the high class in which we'll see that unfold, right? And we're fulfilling a prophecy. Those ones, the gods and goddesses that were supposed to come back with the wealth, the inheritance, because of integrity and living righteous and honorable lives and doing what is necessary for our community, they will get the riches and golds, right? And who is the judgment of that? Ma'at, the creator, right? So you're always being tested, right? You don't just go through life in existing. Every day is your judgment day. You get judged. You get judged on your feelings in your heart towards the opposite sex who look like you. So for Black women, you are judged based on your feelings for Black men. And you can't fake it. The heart doesn't lie, right? And then for Black men, you are judged by your feelings in your heart towards Black women. It is spiritual, okay? It's not everybody's lifetime, but we gonna learn, right? We gonna get the lessons in this lifetime though. All right. Okay, so we are going to be doing a 4-week Master Feminine Faculty Activation sessions. This is going to help you reach the highest level of your femininity, to be a better wife, sister, mother for your community, and to help you develop a higher spiritual IQ, restore and get your indigenous bloodline back. So if you're interested in joining the classes, you can reserve at www.AshaSekhmet.com. So you can like this video, subscribe to my channel, and if you have any questions, you can put them in the comment sections below. I'll see you all in the next video.